Hi, everybody. This is the Barter Shale, and welcome back to the Countdown Depot. In the history of video games, we've all encountered great and not so great characters that have helped make our favorite games the stories we've all come to know and enjoy. However, some characters, despite being prevalent in the various series, haven't really had much time to shine themselves. So here, I intend to tell you all my opinions for top 10 video game characters that should have their own spin off titles, just so we can see their side of the story. Now, before we get into things, let us go through a few honorable mentions. The cores and turrets of the Portal series, a very popular, especially with those who love Gladys and Wheatley. Why not have a game that focuses on them? Unfortunately, I wouldn't really know how to put any focus on a core and a turret, considering the fact that they're mostly stationary, with a few exceptions. Sans and Papyrus from Undertale, who doesn't love those two wacky skeleton brothers? But what would their story be? We know Sans is apathetic, and but all that humor could very well play into maybe if. Well, then again, what am I saying? Have any of you seen the internet? Detective Looker. Now, he's one that I think would do very well. Unfortunately, he's been overshadowed by Detective Pikachu. The Pokemon world doesn't really need two detectives, and unfortunately, Pikachu was already won out that round. Professor Egad. Now, even though he's prevalent in Luigi's Mansion series, we've never been able to play him. However, I do think that a video game featuring him could work. Perhaps we could focus on a younger Egad and how he got into ghost hunting. And of course, three of the most notorious people in the Mushroom Kingdom: Waluigi, Popple, and Nabbit. Waluigi is easy enough to explain. Heck, people have been wanting him to get into Smash for years. Popple and Nabbit, two notorious thieves from various Mario titles, could also work. So I'm thinking this will be an honorable number 11, considering the fact that a game featuring these three would be highly comedic. In any case, let's get on to the main passengers that have arrived on the special 10 guest train. And we will obviously start with Miss Carmelita Fox, or Inspector Fox, as the case may be. Now, I've been a Nintendo guy all my life, so I've never really played the Sly Cooper games, but I've watched a lot of walkthroughs, and the story really interests me, and I kind of like the dynamic Carmelita represents. She's the good guy chasing the thief, Sly Cooper and his gang across the world, trying to bring him to justice. But in the most recent Sly game, which people have been demanding a constant sequel to, in Sly 4, her true feelings for Sly are apparent. The most apparent, anyway. And I figure, why not have her own spin off game to show what she does on her side of the story, the kind of criminals she arrests in between chasing Sly. It, it's an interesting concept because it would kind of give more into a detail of how the other side of the law lives in the Sly Cooper universe. Besides, in the game she is featured out, she isn't really used very much. Even in the game where she can be playable for most of the time, she isn't really featured in too many story missions. But enough about that. Moving on to our next passenger, Mustache Girl from A Hat in Time. Hmm. Now, given the fact that Mustache Girl and Hat Kid would probably end up playing similarly, it would be interesting if Mustache Girl had her own spin off game. Maybe we could see her and her attempts at taking down the Mafia, like before she met Kid or after Hat Kid left the planet, and Mustache Girl would use the timepiece that had Kid left behind if you picked to hand her one at the end of the game. Not exactly sure what her gameplay mechanics be and how they would be different enough to establish her as more than just an echo fighter, so to speak. I mean, don't really have much to say except for the fact that she seems to be pretty clever and I think it would work in some way, but I'm not fully sure how. Kamik, one of two major Mario enemies on this list. Kamik has been the right hand man, or Magikoopa, to Lord Bowser for many, many years, been sticking by his side and serves as his advisor and Bowser Jr.'s babysitter. Yeah. I mean, it would be interesting to see a game that focused on Kamek, that used his magical abilities, and I know that Kamek has been prevalent in a lot of Mario games, sometimes even as a reluctant ally to the bros, but mm, we just haven't really seen a story focused on the Magic Koopa himself. I mean, it would really be nice to see, like, some of the things he's tasked to do, like, and this is a kind of a concept I'd like to go into detail further, where we should actually see the other side of the story, the opposing side of the protagonist. But this is a top 10 list, and I don't want to get into theoreticals here. So, bidding farewell to the Koopa King's advisor. Next up, we have Sally Spears from the Detective Grimoire series. Now, it would this one I admit is a little tough to do, considering the fact that Detective Grimoire is a point and click adventure, and throughout the most recent game, Tangle Tower, Sally tends to go along with Detective Grimoire, but the story or spin off game idea I have in mind for this one is we first see Sally in the Detective Grimoire game where he meets her and she's running a souvenir shop in a swamp attraction. I mean, I'd just like to see an in between game from when he meets Sally in the swamp to how she became his assistant in the Tangle Tower game. Sort of like, I'm not exactly sure what to call an in between story, a filler story, as it were. And besides, she's got a pretty cool personality and is all serious. I mean, I like characters that have a serious nature to them. Gives them a little bit of that extra charm. Anyway, moving on to the next passenger. Zelda from the Legend of Zelda series. Okay, granted, it's a little odd, but I mean, in most of the Legend of Zelda games, we just play as Link. I mean, true, we can play as Zelda in the Hyrule Warriors game, but we've never really had a story fully centered on her where we play as her through the entire adventure. But then again, it's kind of hard to put a focus on her when she's the keeper of the Triforce of Wisdom, and Link, who holds the Triforce of Courage, is the one who is always tasked with saving the day. But who knows? Maybe in the upcoming Breath of the Wild 2, Zelda will become a playable character. We'll just have to wait and see. Moving on. Mumbo Jumbo from the Banjo Kazooie series. Mumbo Jumbo is well known in the classic 3D platformer as the one who handles the transformations of the typical bear and bird. Although he was also playable for a brief time in Banjo Tooie, though I personally think it would be interesting if he had an adventure all to himself. Like, what if he went up against a more powerful magic user than Gruntilda ever was? And maybe he could use some more complex spells. Well, but like I said, this one I just threw out because well, he just seems like he could use a little more development if Nintendo or whoever owns Banjo Kazooie now decides to bring the classic series back into the modern era. At number four, we have the Team Grunt from any Pokemon team, really. I figure this would be a rather interesting way to incorporate some new storytelling into the Pokemon series. I mean, we've seen plans. Uh, well, let me rephrase. We've seen the heroes fight the evil organization, but I think it would be interesting to tell a story from the perspective of someone in the organization. And no, I don't think it would actually be a good or a clever storytelling element to tell the story of the bad guy. I mean, I think we. I mean, personally, as a story writer slash teller myself, I think it would be interesting to follow the story of the background characters, see things from their perspective, like seeing how a grunt would react in to their boss's plans, like Team Skull or Team Flare, Galactic, etc., and how the world looks to them, and maybe there'd be a surprise twist where they go against their boss's rule and ideas, and decide to save the day instead. And like I said, the taking the perspective of a typical henchman is a unique twist because, after all, in a lot of stories, we tend to see it from the hero's perspective, the sidekick's perspective, and even the villain's perspective, but never the villain's henchman perspective. Eh, but then again, that's a subject I'll delve into another day in better detail. On to Passenger 3. Boom Boom. Another top lieutenant of the Koopa King, Boom Boom has been with the series uh, for about as long as Kamik, yet people regard him as the weak, annoying enemy that always shows up out of nowhere that seems to just get in the way. However, I think that he deserves a little time in the spotlight, being one of the most loyal members of the Koopa Troop. I mean, like, give give him a bit more of a story, a bit of a background, so as to show that he's not a complete and a total. What's the word I'm looking for? A complete and total uh, common enemy. Well, not a common enemy, considering he's more of a lieutenant than anything else, but he's gone from regular boss to mid boss. And in Mario Maker, a lot of people just put multiple of him in a room and try to challenge. But I think he deserves a little more love than hate. But but you see where I'm going with this rambling. On to our second passenger, Natalia Kowalski. Now, I'm a big fan of the Lego series, and one of my favorite Lego video games is Lego City Undercover, where we focus on the story of Chase McCain and his role as an undercover police officer for the Lego City Police Department. Now, Natalia Kowalski is Chase's kind of crush love interest. She used to be a reporter with brown hair until Chase McCain somehow let it slip that she was a secret witness to the villain Rex Fury's crimes and managed to put him away. So after Chase McCain was transferred to another police department out in the sticks for that, Natalia Kowalski dyed her hair blonde and became a member of the Witness Protection Program, where she became a paramedic. Now, personally, I think that this character has some real potential for a spin-off game of her own. I mean, it would be interesting to see what life would be like in a Lego version of Witness Protection. While I know that now I know in real life such circumstances would be kind of sad and stuff, and I'm not trying to be offensive, but I mean, such concepts would be very interesting to put in a game, especially considering how lighthearted and funny the Lego series is. But I mean, and it would kind of also be interesting to see how a Lego paramedic would work in a video game because we've seen in Lego games there's ability to put out fires and in undercover there's the ability to arrest somebody. It would kind of be interesting to see how a Lego paramedic slash doctor would work. But and if you want, by the way, folks, before I get to my number one, I just want to say if you want me to go into further details on any of these characters, or if you have a few ideas of your own, leave a like in the comment below. Leave some comments in the section below, and we'll see. Anyway, on to passenger number one. Uh, Rob from various Nintendo titles. Now, Rob has been part of the Nintendo system ever since the N64 days, where he was an actual accessory. He's even appeared in various games uh, throughout Nintendo, even becoming a fighter in Super Smash Bros. But I think Rob deserves a game of his own where he's the main character. I mean, sure, he had a compelling story in the Subspace Emissary and Brawl, but I think he deserves a full on game. I mean, he's a very capable robot with a lot of special features that I think could work. I mean, the story could be that he was from a factory, he was programmed a bit differently, or something to that effect. I'm not entirely sure because, I mean, I'm, well, to be honest, it's kind of hard to make a good game when you don't really understand Rob's character, considering the fact that it changes from game to game. Sometimes he's just there to race a Mario Kart. Other times he is the leader robot, uh, of robot civilization. But I still think that there is some potential for him to have his own game. And anyway, the train's now departing. I thank you for coming to the Countdown Depot. Please remember to leave a like, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. I am the Bard of Shale, and thank you for visiting the depot